Hey, here we are. Now we're live everywhere. On your channel, all I can see is you. So
Yeah,
can't see
it's
the
having a
whole.
hard
Yeah.
time pulling up. Yeah, let me see. But
we have our first side chatter, and that is Laborious Cretan. I'm just too lazy to type, so I'm just going to say welcome, Laborious Cretan.
Welcome, Laborious Cretan. Somebody find one. So, okay. Are you ready? Are you ready?
I am ready.
You're ready to tell us about.
Yep, I'm ready. I'm just going to end my screen. Yeah, so idealism is well, first of all, I just want to say thanks for having me on, right? So I'm here kind of just to make a simple case, and basically, like, we're talking about anti-physicalism versus idealism. So we'll pull these, I guess we'll pull these definitions up in a minute, but from my point of view, what I'm going to be talking about is how physicalism, first of all, faces a few impossible problems. Like, it has to explain how subjective experience arises from fundamentally non-conscious matter. And so, like, after centuries, no one's really described what that would look like in principle. So idealism sort of reverses this. So instead of deriving mind from matter, we start with consciousness as fundamental, and then explain the physical world as structured, patterns within it itself. So the hard, I don't know if you're familiar with this thing we call the hard problem of consciousness, but it disappears when we're not trying to pull consciousness just out of thin air, right? So what I'm going to do, and part of what makes me lean that way, is, first of all, I have to take history into account when looking at, like, notions of reality. Like, human paradigms are kind of shaped by cultural norms, technologies, institutional alignments like the church or, academia. So rather than just arising out of nothing, they sort of come from these cultural influences. So what a society takes to be like obvious reality is really just a worldview that best fits its tools, institutions, and the intellectual climate at any given time. So for me, it's fair to say that this could be the case today. As smart and clever as we assume we are, I think it's always valid to question our current assumptions about reality. And so that's kind of what motivates that, first of all.
Okay.
Hopefully that makes a little sense.
Yeah.
And because idealism is it's just switching the paradigm. It's just turning, instead of saying matter is, fundamental, is saying consciousness is fundamental, which may be a bit unintuitive because in our culture, we've been taught the other way around. And so idealism just kind of turns this on its head. So all the science, all the observations, everything is still fitting. It's underdetermined. What we see in the world doesn't evidence one metaphysic over the other. So we can still keep the science, we can still keep the law-like patterns, everything like that. It's just that when we go into metaphysics to try to understand what is reality, we have to kind of like compare the metaphysical models against each other and see which one is more, parsimonious, which one is more, explanatory, and has internal consistency.
Okay. So you mentioned one problem of physicalism. What are the other problems? So you mentioned the hard problem of consciousness would be one.
Do we need to go ahead and define physicalism so that we're not talking around what people?
Yeah, let's define physicalism so we don't. Yeah.
Okay. Now, all of this is just from a Copilot search, and of course, now my Copilot is being very sticky. Okay. I'm just going to read off the most widely accepted definition of physicalism according to Copilot. You can always research it on your own, like, articles and things like that. Physicalism is the view that everything that exists is fundamentally physical, that there's nothing over and above the physical world. This includes objects, events, properties, phenomena, even those that seem non-physical, like consciousness or morality. Everything ultimately depends on or supervenes on physical facts. That's the core definition used in contemporary metaphysics and philosophy of mind. There's a little bit of an expanded definition here. All phenomena are either physical or fully determined by physical properties and physical laws. Mental, biological, and social phenomena are not separate substances. And that's, I think, just in response to, types of idealism. They arise from physical processes like brain activity. There's one kind of fundamental stuff in the universe, the physical, making physicalism a form of ontological modalism. I sound so smart when I say modalism. But anyway, that's the definition. I can put it up on the screen if you want us to, but
yeah. Okay. Well,
I'm going to use Hold on, Mike.
I agree with all of that. I pretty much agree with that. So that would be my view, basically.
Let's see. Share screen. Window. There we go. I am so sorry for. Now, can you see the Copilot page?
Yes. Yes, I can see it.
I pulled up the concise summary table just because it's a better presentation. What exists? Only physical things. Mind-body relation. Mind depends entirely on the physical brain. Higher level phenomenon, fully grounded in physical processes. Metaphysical stance, ontological monism, opposed to dualism, idealism, and panpsychism.
Yep. Okay, good.
Right.
So now I'm going to take it off the
definition.
screen.
Oh, damn. You took it off. Okay.
You want me to put it back on? I can do that. I have skills.
No. I was going to tell you, go put it back on because I want to take a snapshot because I want to pull it up here for reference because that pretty much covers it. So, okay, the hard problem of consciousness would be one problem. So we're looking for other problems. Okay, 4. And we're going to try to get a screenshot here. Okay, got it. Got it, Scott.
You're done. I'm going to stop sharing because I just don't like to share.
I know you don't. Fucking text them.
So
okay. Other problems. Are we there?
All right. So one of the main problem with that metaphysic is that the evidence flies in the face of that metaphysic, even on physicalism itself. So the main problem with physicalism is it doesn't stand up to its own standards. That's the first thing that jumps out at me. So in other words, the claim is with physicalism, the claim is that one of the core claims is that physicality is fundamental, right? That, physical things like matter, energy, things like this are fundamental, right? So what does fundamental mean?
Okay.
Like when you talk about something being fundamental, that means that it has standalone existence. It doesn't need anything else. It's sort of like the ground upon which everything rests on, right?
Okay.
But on physicalism itself, all of these things, matter, energy, all these physical things, stop being observable at 10 to the minus 33 centimeters. That's the Planck scale. So you got the Planck scale, Planck time, 10 to the minus 45 centimeters. It's not a matter of just being ignorant or not being able to see beyond that point because of lack of technology or tools or something like that. If you apply the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, as you shine more energy into like a bit of matter, and you go all the way, and you almost get below 10 to the minus 33 centimeters, what you do is you create a black hole. You know, gravity with all that energy and that principle creates a black hole. So as you measure down, it becomes immeasurable. There's nothing there to measure. It's meaningless as far as physics is concerned. So what happens is on physicalism, if it can't be measured, if it can't be described in those terms and predicted, then it's meaningless, which means it's like God. Like gods are meaningless because you can't observe them. You can't make any predictions on them. You can't do anything like that. And so just on physicalism itself, matter, everything that we call physical, is not fundamental. That's the point. It's not that we don't observe physicality. We do. We call it physical. Whatever this experience is, we can label it physical. But at a certain threshold, physicality is no longer fundamental. And that's why we have different scientific views. Like, you know, some people postulate like a, multiverses. Like there's beyond that Planck scale, there's multiverses of more physical stuff. Or there's a geometric pattern called the amplituhedron, which is what many people say that is going to get space and time emerges out of these geometrical spaces. But all of these things are just abstractions. They're not really physical things we've empirically measured or can make any predictive things on, right? For right now, anyways. So as it is right now, what the things we call physical cannot be fundamental. That's why science is looking beyond the Planck scale to learn more about reality. And we already know that physical things are just immeasurable. So that's part of the argument that I have against that claim that physicalism is fundamental.
Okay. So that would be an interpretation of quantum mechanics is another problem, basically, interpreting quantum mechanics.
That's not really an interpretation. That's sort of a brute fact right now. Everyone agrees to that.
Agrees to what? That you can't observe things?
You can't measure beyond the Planck scale. The Planck scale is textbook. Well, if go ahead.
Okay. If you're looking at something and you can measure, I can measure my iPhone. Okay. Why do I need to go to this abstraction of physical experiments at CERN and all of the mess that we have right now with fundamental physics? Why do I need to go there? Basically, I can observe my iPhone right now. It's there. So anyway,
well,
I'm pushing back, and I shouldn't be. Yeah.
No, you're good. It's a good question. Okay. People have that question. And like I would say, you don't really have to. You would only, it seems to open up a question, though, if you're talking about fundamental reality. When we talk about fundamental reality, we're talking about a ground upon which everything else we know that exists must rest upon. Like, for example, theists will say God is the fundamental reality. Idealists will say consciousness or something mind-like is the fundamental reality. And materialists or physicalists will say the physical is fundamental reality. And so where do you look? Well, you look at matter. How far can we measure matter? And matter comes to a very arbitrary spot where we can't measure it anymore. Not just, like I say, because of our limitation. We can actually shine more energy on matter. It's just that at a specific point, it breaks down and it's no longer measurable. That means it's no longer fundamental at that point. It may be fundamental after that point, but it's not fundamental beyond that point. That's my my point.
Okay. So that's number 2. Is there another?
I don't have a problem with physicalism with anything else. I mean, it's great at getting us to the moon, getting us to Mars, doing all the things it needs to do. I don't have a problem with physicalism. I just have a problem with metaphysical claims about physicalism is the only thing that I'm really addressing, that metaphysical claim.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know which to go after first.
And here's another go ahead. Yeah, you go right ahead.
No. Do your other thing first. We want to give you an opportunity first.
Okay. Well,
before I start.
Well,
sidetrack.
Well, physicalism will say, for example, that consciousness itself is a physical process, right? Like, it'll say that, well, experience is physical. We identify it as a brain process.
I think the most correct way to say it, according to physicalists, is that consciousness depends on physical or brain processes. I don't think it tries to say, because that's where the idea of supervenience or what's the other word, emergent or whatever comes from, is
emergence.
It's a thing in and of its own self, but you can't have consciousness or mental without physical brain function. Anyway, I'll back out, but I just wanted to, I don't know, put my 2 cents in there.
I lost my train of thought.
Right. So like one of the things that just kind of occurred to me, are you guys familiar with mereological nihilism?
No.
Okay. So this is kind of a good, mereological nihilism. So this is sort of a view that kind of makes a distinction between physical things and consciousness, right? And it may be convincing to you. So I'll just kind of bring this up. So on mereological nihilism, what we call physical objects, say like chairs, they're not real composites. They're just really arrangement of simpler things. Like a chair does not exist over and above the atoms in subatomic particles arranged in a chair-wise way, right?
Right.
So its boundaries, the identity of chair, the persistent conditions are sort of imposed by our linguistic and pragmatic interests. Like, what use is it? It would be a chair if I can sit in it. If it's got, legs and arms and stuff like that, in the back seat and stuff, I can sit on it. It's a chair, right? So the difference between a chair, a table, or a pile of wood is just really just conventional rather than ontological. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
So the same symbols could be redescribed under different concepts without any change in what fundamentally exists for those things. I think we could all agree with that. But when we look at, say, the mind, however, does not really divide in the same way. So like, while physical symbols can be rearranged, grouped, or redescribed without altering their fundamental nature, conscious experience presents itself as a unified field that's not arbitrarily partitionable like that. Like, one mind is not simply a rearrangement of experiential simples in the same way a chair is rearranged of particles. So crucially here, minds are disassociated rather than merely separated. Like, your experience and mine are not two regions of the same experiential stream that we divided by language or convention. No, these are two genuinely distinct first-person perspectives. So even on mere logical nihilism, where like physical objects reduced to arrangements for linguistic convenience, mental unity and individuation, it resists that same treatment. It suggests that minds are not composites in the same sense as physical objects. So they can't really be dissolved into purely conventional divisions like that. And so that's one way that we can make a distinction between the physical and the mental.
Okay.
So I mean, so that's one way that we can differentiate it, because a lot of physicalists will say, well, how can you show a difference between consciousness and a physical process? And this is one way to get at it. That's one approach. The other thing that I would say is that you know, it's sort of an assumption that consciousness, because it's a different category. Like if you say, like you had brought up emergence, like wetness from H2O, for example, right?
Yeah.
Well, these are two physical properties that create a brand new novel physical property. But what physicalism is saying about consciousness is that you've got these physical properties that give rise to this experiential, conceptual property. And physical properties are third-person observables. Not so with consciousness. Like I say, it's first person, it's disassociated from other minds. So it's an entirely different property. And so that would need explaining. You can't really just say, it's kind of like the fire triangle. It just, fire comes about through oxygen and these other interactions. But all of that stuff is physical. So with consciousness, though, we have a category error. It's a conceptual gap. And that's why they call it the hard problem of consciousness. And right now, physicalism doesn't really close that gap, where idealism, it starts with consciousness at the very beginning as the assumption. And that closes the consciousness gap right there, you know? So explanatorily, it works a lot better, is my argument.
Okay. Okay. Damn, I disagree with everything you said. But
yeah, cool.
I don't know where to start. It's
Good.
like a smorgasbord. It's like a smorgasbord. Let's see. Okay, you said mind is unified. Conscious, that mind is a unified thing. How did you put that? You used a different word, I think. You said mind is like it's all one thing and can't be divided. How did you put that? I think.
Yeah, so it's
indivisible.
Not to say that minds can't fractal off, because that's even part of my view. Minds, we know that the mind can be fractaled off. It's just a conscious experience. When we talk about phenomenological, yeah, it's so hard to say.
I'm laughing my ass off now.
Phenomena, yeah, that phenomena. It's always one stream. Like even if you had like DID, you know, this dissociated identity disorder, you have all these different alters, right?
Yeah.
But at any given time, like at any given time, there's one conscious stream. You know, there may be different alters, but you're only conscious of one stream at a time. Yeah. Right. And so that's what I mean by unified.
Are you a
it's a Castrop term. Say that again.
Are you a Castropian?
Of course, I've listened to Castrop. I listen to Nathan Hawkins, Castrop, David Chalmers, and physicalists too. So I listen to everybody. But that's a good analogy, though, because I agree with that analogy, because it is a an example of some kind of disassociation within the same structure, right?
Yeah.
And so that works to say what I was saying, that, you know, consciousness seems to be a streamlined subjective experience that doesn't share its association with other minds, even if those other minds are within your own brain, say, so to speak, right? They're still disassociated. So there is this unity, and that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Does Castrop spell alter with an A or an E? Altar or alter?
I guess it would be alter, ALTER.
TER. Okay. TER.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, even with dissociated, or let's say alters, even with dissociative. Okay. How do you know you've had enough coffee? Try to pronounce phenomenology. Also, try to pronounce dissociative. So, anyway, with people who have alters, haven't they done neurological tests and found that you can actually see different parts of the brain lit up on whatever imaging test when a particular alter is prominent? So to me, that seems to be arguing for a physicalist type of approach. Although I'm sorry, we weren't supposed to rebut, were we?
No, it's okay.
No, you can. I mean, it's a good question. Put it as a question, like, how do you explain that?
Yeah, it seems to me
like
it would make to me that would make anyway. Go. Yeah, how do you explain that?
Okay, yeah. So, like on a physicalist paradigm, you would say that's the causal chain right there. You'll say when that brain lights up, then this experience happens, right?
Well, I would call
it, you know,
suggestive.
Yeah, it would suggest that there's some causal link between the brain and the experience, right? And I would say that, you know, it works on idealism too. It doesn't really dismiss anything idealism say. There's a case called Phineas Gage, where, you know, he had like a pipe that went up through his chin. He was once a real nice guy. Then his character totally changed after this pole affected his brain. And so he became sort of a different person in a way, right? And so you say, oh, well, that proves it, that this physical thing can touch in on your physical brain and then change your experience. And that's not really what's in question with idealism. There's still an experience, though. That's what needs to be explained. Like, you know, for me, the kind of naturalistic idealist I am, I totally expect law-like patterns. I expect the brain to be just like, you don't even have to go that far. You could just say drinking alcohol is going to make me drunk. That's not surprising. You know, the brain is, to put it, another Castrop says that the brain is just what consciousness looks like from a third-party disassociated boundary. So it's not that there's consciousness out there necessarily, like outside of you. It's just that we are all embodied within consciousness. That's what idealism is trying to say, you know. So these sort of correlations aren't really surprises like that. They're just correlation, but correlation does not equal causation.
So Castrop saying that mind is, or brain is what a mind out there looks like. Is that what I forget how you said that.
Like the same way that you see anything, like any object that you see, that you observe it within your own, you know, interface, right?
Yeah.
And so what you're looking at is just different aspects of the cosmic mind, if you will, or I don't like these kind of terms because they're sort of sloppy, but you're looking at disassociation of the mind at large. So I would just clarify, like, idealism doesn't necessarily predict disembodied consciousness. It's just suggesting that bodies are objects within consciousness, not containers for it. So
and a body is what the other consciousness looks like to you, that sort of thing.
Right.
Brain, that sort of thing.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
There's a hard problem there, by the way, that Castrop has, in that how exactly how exactly does mind, which is like for him, there's all these dissociated or alters out there, right, that are all mapped onto this whole, this whole consciousness. How does that get to connect with it looking like a brain? How does it make it look like a brain? That I would like to
like
know.
why?
So that's a hard problem.
Why is the disassociation there? Yeah, I get that. That's a good question. And but the parity here is that it's the same problem with physicalism, because they're saying that how can you get consciousness out of non-conscious matter? That's sort of like, how do you explain that? So both of these views suffer some sort of hard problem right there, right? It's just that if you think about the way that I'm thinking about it, is at least we're talking about the same category. It's a larger leap. It's a much larger gap to close when you go from non-conscious to conscious, rather than consciousness to more consciousness as it relates to itself. Because we can see this even within our own experience.
When you go from consciousness to a mind looking like a brain, that seems like a really big leap. I don't understand how, like, I can't see your brain. I can see you, but I can't see your brain. So I'm experiencing you as a person with a hat and glasses on my skin, So I think that's a real hard
the brain
problem.
is not the only way.
Right.
Well, that's not the only way. It's like all observations are like that. Like, you could see me as just an icon, like I'm seeing you as an icon or something. It's still the same thing. It's just a symbol. It's a representation of that conscious being, in front of me externally.
Okay.
So that's really all it is. And if you're looking at a brain, you're looking at the same thing. If the brain is the tool or the interface that mediates consciousness, then that's what you're looking at from a third person point of view. Now, from a first person point of view, I don't experience neurons firing. I don't experience all of these sort of things that go on under the hood. I don't experience that.
Right.
It's all represented as a physical reality out there, right? That's how it's represented from first person point of view. From third person point of view, it would look like neurons firing and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So skeptic philosophy might want to talk to you at some point. So just make a note of that. But Scott, can you, we got a lot of really good chats going by and I'm missing them because I'm trying to pay attention.
Yeah, I'm putting stuff up there.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. There's a lot of stuff. Anyway, okay. So, God, where do I start? First of all, I don't believe in consciousness. I don't believe in mind. I don't think that's real at all. And so there's that. So that takes care of the hard problem. I don't really have that because I'm an organism and something's happening here in myself, and a lot of things are happening, and we call that mind. We can call that mind, or I can call it consciousness. Consciousness never happens to me unless I'm having these discussions and I'm thinking, oh, what am I conscious of? And then when I do that, what I do is I look around and I see stuff, which is not consciousness at all. It's just the shit I'm seeing, right? So anyway, I'm an eliminativist about consciousness, right? But I will say that there is something happening to me that fits into that grab bag suitcase word, mind and consciousness. But I think it's all bullshit that we've acquired through our culture, and I don't believe there's a hard problem at all. That's one thing. On quantum mechanics, they may have done some really interesting particle experiments and some really interesting math, and they've kind of figured out that there are fields and that these fields behave in a probabilistic manner at a quantum level. But I never deal in my reality is filled with objects that very much are observable, are there, are reachable, touchable, they stay in place, they have a time-space coordinate system, right? And so I don't buy any of the quantum problem at all, because quantum mechanics is basically the tip of an iceberg that we are approaching in our mathematics and our physics, and trying to understand what the hell is really going on at a fundamental level, right? But it has. There's a really wonderful quote I got from a guy, and I kind of modified it a little bit, but it's like a neutrino can go through a cement wall, right? And so we have this basically quantum uncertainty that probably there is a low probability, but you could go through a cement wall. But he always said, you are not a fucking neutrino. You are not a neutrino. You're a big macro object, right? That sort of thing. So I would dispel any of the quantum stuff. We're not physicists. We're not quite there. Physicists have very different views about this interpretation of quantum mechanics and what it means at a macro level. But we can all be very damn sure that we are things here in space-time, and we have other things around us that are in space-time. And I think that's all we need to know to get going. Another point is I'm a structural realist, and I believe that chairs are real in every sense of the word, that it's not just the particles that the chair is made of, but it is the arrangement of the particles that makes a real thing called a chair. And it's not behaving in a chair-like way. It is a goddamn chair because that's how it's structured. So there's that. What else? I don't know. That's what you're up against with me, basically, that I'm a hard physicalist because of this.
So I just want to be clear. So how do you know stuff if you're not conscious? How do you know all this stuff? How do you know stuff?
Well, that
how would you, without consciousness, how do you know stuff?
Without consciousness, I don't think.
Because you said that
makes any sense.
Consciousness is bullshit.
Well, okay. So anyway, for me, knowing things in the universe or knowing things in my physical environment is me as an organism fitting to the environment. My knowledge is my fit to the environment, right? I have knowledge of this cup here, right? And that involves a whole lot of neuroscience, my knowing that there's a cup, right? And that's a persistent state. Even when there's no cup and I'm sleeping, okay, there's still something about my brain that knows what a cup is and where it is. So knowledge is just fit to the physical world. So I see myself as an organism, sort of a little, you can imagine it like that we are little dust devils. We're like dust devils floating across the environment, and we're doing all this stuff. And that stuff that we're doing, all that whipping around, that is what we feel is our mind, and we feel is our consciousness. And we'll make little squeaky noise. We'll make squeaky noises like consciousness and mind when we're dust deviling around the universe, but we are just physical things. So anyway,
I agree that language is limiting, and maybe consciousness isn't the right word for this arising.
Yeah.
But whatever this arising is, I would say it's real, because if it wasn't real, then we have no foundation for knowledge to make such claims. Right? I don't understand. So how do you, let's just use, I don't know if you want to use the word consciousness, maybe we can call it arising. Without this arising, how do you know anything?
How do I know things without I mean, that depends on what you mean by know. I mean, knowing things to me is the structure of my brain over time, basically. I have come to fit my environment over time.
But how do you know that, even that thing right there?
Because I know the first thing first, that so I make that assumption, right? That my knowledge is my fit to the environment, right? And then I start looking at the environment, and then I start looking at biology, and then I start looking at neuroscience, and then I understand what I am. So it goes in a circle, sort of.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't need a
that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that with all worldviews, you're going to go into some sort of epistemic loop. I guess what I'm basing Yeah, I'm going to base my assumption. If I'm going to go with idealism, I would base that assumption on a rational, law-like mind structure to what bases all of this stuff that we experience on. For one thing, it would close the gap, and it would also explain a lot of things like law-like patterns and everything like that. Just as beautiful as once you get to a certain stage on physicalism, you do the same thing. But where all I'm saying is metaphysically, it sounds like physicalism is just saying it's a brute fact. It's not really anything that we can found it on. It's just an assumption that we see things this way, it's that way, and that's just the way it is, which is fine. But I'm just saying it's not really an explanation.
I think it is because when you see things, physical things around you, and you understand how to operate in the physical world, which we all do, by the way. You know, we all have that basic knowledge that we acquired when we were between 1 and 3 years old about how physical things work in the world. When you have all of that knowledge, you can go on through grade school and high school and early college, and then a graduate degree in neuroscience, and you can figure out what is going on with those small steps, all based on physical things. And when you get to neuroscience, then you understand things like why we feel like we have a unified mind. That's a feature of your brain and your biology. It's not a physical fact anywhere. Well, it's a physical fact, I guess, but
it's a correlation.
Anyway, yeah. So basically, I just accept the brute fact of objects in the universe around me. The thing that I know the most about, the thing that I do every day of my life, right, is to deal with the world around me. I don't deal with my mind all that much. I deal more with what's around me when I navigate through the universe and all that stuff. But anyway, let's see. Not sure where we could go with this.
Well, one thing I would say is that you know, another way you can approach it is through making predictions.
Yeah.
You know, you can say, well, if, you know, idealism were true, or if there's some sort of non-material explanation for matter, what predictions can we make on that?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, okay. If idealism is true, okay, we've got, how do you deal with the problem of there being a Mike and a Scott the Mirror Point and a Scott Old Scott? How do you deal with this shared reality that we have between us? Like, for instance,
Old Scott.
Very old Scott. If you and I decided to have coffee together next week, right? We could lay out time-space coordinates, and we could actually meet at a Starbucks in Oklahoma. And we would actually meet. We would actually get there. That's a prediction, that I could actually meet you physically. And yet you're this disembodied mind. How do you account for that? How do you account for the structure of the physical world that these minds are creating, right? You know about the solipsism problem of idealism, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing. The assumption there is that there's a disembodied mind. And what I'm going to repeat is that on naturalistic idealism, at least in the way that I'm trying to argue for it, it's not that minds are disembodied, but that bodies are in mind itself. And so all of these patterns, law-like structures, cause and effects, you know, what we describe as the physical world is going to hold naturally. It's predicted on idealism that way. I think maybe what you could do, because, you know, that runs into the principle of underdetermination. Is all I'm really saying. Is that really is just an underdetermined type of argument. But what you could do is ask, well, what, you know, physicalism can make, you know, predictions. You know, when I throw the ball up in the air, it's going to come back down. But what does idealism predict? What does this whole mind-like thing beyond the neurons, how can you find out if that's true? Right? Now that's sort of, in a way, smuggling in a physicalist assumption that anything real has to be known that way. But fortunately, you can even do that too. And it's through anatomical homeostasis. That's the evidence that that we have that a non-material mind sort of ingresses upon structures. Very clear.
Okay,
It's
I didn't
very
understand that. Anatomical homeostasis?
Homeostasis.
What is
So anatomical homeostasis is the ability of biological systems to achieve and maintain specific target morphologies, like through goal-directed behavior, even without brains or nervous systems. So there was there's all sorts of experiments. So we've got evidence.
Michael Levin? Are you talking Michael Levin?
Yeah, he's one that does that. Like the two-headed planarian experiment and the xenobot experiments, both of those demonstrate that clearly. And so, but when while it's not correct, it's not evidence for idealism per se, but it does sort of show that on physicalism there are certain holes in that story, because this shouldn't happen on materialism.
Yeah, but when you look at Michael Levin's papers, there are no physical holes at all. All he talks about is embryogenesis, and basically how an embryo develops with bioelectric fields. And he talks about actual bioelectric fields. And if you look at, if you listen to Michael Levin blathering on the internet, he has gone way the hell off of his research, away from his research. But if you look at his papers, you're going to see nothing but physical phenomena behaving.
Well,
and you aren't going to see any spook, right?
Yeah, that's not what from what I understand with Michael Levin, he's not really promoting. Well, he's not promoting idealism. So for him, it seems like what he's talking about is a platonic space.
Forms.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That,
and he's really gone off the deep end. I think he should quit smoking the guns. But anyway,
I mean, that's fine to say that, but do you have any counterfactuals
about how that stuff happens? How those did you and I have a talk? Did you and I have a talk about chaos theory? And at some point in comments, was that you?
Maybe so.
We were talking about Michael Levin. Did we have a conversation on one of Michael Levin's interviews? That was
we
pretty
may
recent.
have. Yeah, we may have.
Oh God, I wish I'd known that. I would have pulled that up, because I'm pretty sure that was you. But we were talking about basically chaos theory and attractors. You know what an attractor is. Now, an attractor. Yeah. That was you. I knew it. Okay. Yep. We got a long way to go with that, but anyway, attractors are basically you can work them out with very simple mathematical functions, right? The same as you can work out the behavior of an ant nest with a couple real simple rules about pheromones and visual cues and things like that, and you'll end up with this really complex behavior. But in chaos theory, with these very simple fractal equations, right, that they put up, there will end up being these attractors. Now, those attractors are mathematically real, but in no way are those platonic forms coming from somewhere else. Because if you were to work out every single step of that equation, you would be able to work out that attractor in principle.
Like I said before, even on that comment, I told you that attractors don't really refute Michael Levin's work, because attractors are descriptive features of a state space. They're not really explanations of why a system selects, maintains, or escapes them, right? So saying that cells fall into like developmental attractors just redescribes the regularity of the behavior.
Yeah, but basically you could in principle work out that entire space, that entire state space transformation with perfect causality, right? With just causal things with those equations. Those attractors in basically in chaos theory can be worked out step at a time and predicted one step at a time. Overall, you can't start with these simple things with our little human minds and then say, oh, there's going to be an attractor there. But if you were to follow every step in a computer program about how it draws that attractor, you would see at every step that there is one state leading to the next state, leading to the next state, leading to the next state. So it would be completely causal, and there wouldn't be any Platonic form coming in from outside. And now what Levin is saying is that these biological organisms tend to always develop a limb, right, at a certain point, right? But if you look at how that happens, and I have looked in very detailed molecular biology about how that happens, if you look at every single point in how that happens, there is nothing that indicates that there's a form coming in from the outside. It's always basically one molecule bumping into another.
So you're saying that attractors are not just descriptors, they're prescriptive equations.
They're prescriptive based on the system that you're evolving. Basically, it will prescribe that attractor. It will always end up with that.
That's going beyond standard attractor theory. If you can show cells operate with goal-directed error correction, you know, it can be mediated by bioelectric signaling and like some sort of top-down coordination across tissues. Like in many experiments, organisms don't just simply relax into the nearest attractor. They climb right out of local minima and reroute development, or they even regenerate or correct morphology under novel conditions. So that's behavior that requires internal reference states like memory, boundary conditions that attractor models just don't supply, because those are descriptors. So in short, attractors are just compatible with Levin's work, but they sort of presuppose the teleological control principles that he's explaining, right? So, I mean, you're looking at that it's sort of like the same, it goes back to the same thing, like these things we use to describe nature, how it's a leap to say that just because we can describe them, that they are the very thing that creates the reality to be described in. Like, I don't know, that seems kind of easy to figure out, but I mean, I don't want to hold this whole conversation on attractors versus Platonic forms, but that's just one thing that idealists will use or can use, whether you accept it or not. I just wanted to put that out there anyways. Let the audience know it, you know.
Okay, so this is a cell, right? And what Levin is saying is that these cells, when you separate them and jumble them up or give them some new problem, right, that these cells always reassemble. Like they've done all kinds of experiments with different kinds of cells in an embryo. They start to differentiate into two or three different kinds of cells, right? And they can stir them up, mix them up in a plate so that they're completely random, and they will come together again, and they'll form these perfect layers of the epidermis, and you know they'll form this perfect structure over and over and over again. And that is because of the cell. The reality of the cell is that it has a certain protein complement, and it has certain membrane receptors, and those receptors are always going to lead it to that state. It's going to go to that attractor state, right?
Why?
So it's always in. And why?
Why
did you say why? Oh, yeah, because two cells working together, we got another cell here, right? We got another cell working there, and it has a different set of attractor or a different set of membranes, and these two things are going to exchange messages, and they're going to behave in a certain way. And some of these cells, basically, like there's something called the EMT oh my God, I'm going to forget the name. Epithelial to mesenchymal transformation. Basically, there are layers of tissue, in the embryo, and all of a sudden they will break up, and they will go into this mesenchymal form where they're just a collection of cells migrating, and they will migrate based on these signals, right? And there's nothing magical about this. We know how this shit works, right?
Yeah.
And
So
what
I mean,
Levin's working out is that there are also electrical fields that we have to account for, and that's what he's famous for. And that's all he fucking proved. That's all he's famous for, is showing that basically there are sodium ions here. We have Na minus, right? And or Na plus, and over here we have some other thing, right? We have a minus. So he's showing that these electrical fields are important too, but he hasn't shown anything else. He hasn't shown anything Wu-like in embryology at all in any of his papers. I challenge you to find.
I don't know that. All I can say, because I'm not a professional biologist, but all I can say is it's arguable. It's out there, and I haven't seen any refutations. I understand not everyone's going to agree, and that's fine. But still, the question remains, how do you even know that? Even if I grant you that there's no evidence that there's any sort of intelligence or Platonic form to, ascribe to any part of that, even if that were true, how do you know that if you're not conscious? That's the part that I still don't understand.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're back to the idealism. Gotcha. We don't know anything if we're not, we don't know anything if we're not a functioning organism, right? That's fitting to something in the environment. Anyway, I mean, you can always pull that.
You're a functioning. You're pretty much. Are you arguing that we're sort of like just zombies?
Zombies?
That it's all going on in the dark.
I, for one, don't have a craving for human flesh, so I don't think
no, we're right. Beautiful.
I could be a rib zombie because I do get cravings for ribs.
No, we're a beautiful dust devil. We're not a fucking zombie. A zombie would be an empty dust devil. We're this wonderful dust devil whipping out, just moving around, and we'll move around for about 100 years, and then we'll get tired, and the dust will start to fall down, and then we're dead.
Yeah,
I agree, that's it, right?
But there's no consciousness with it. We're just like a literal dirt devil, right? We're just, that's what I'm trying to understand you. Like, because when someone says consciousness is bullshit, it doesn't exist, that's the first thing I'm going to say. Then I wonder, why should I listen to anything else you have to say? Because if you're not conscious, who are you talking to? Like, maybe that's just, I'm just trying to understand.
Okay. So, God, let's see. How can we put that? I mean, I am a active dust devil, and you're an active dust devil, and Scott's an active dust devil, and we're whirling around doing our stuff, and we're reacting to each other. We're reacting to all the features of the dust devil, and that's why you should listen to me, because I'm a living, vibrant dust devil of an organism, right? And so are you, and so is Scott. And we're one of us is in Florida, one in Texas, one in Minnesota. It really. Okay, I listened to your video where you were going against this precept guy, right? And he was saying, "Oh, why should you care about babies being hurt, right?" And you came back at him, and it's like, because you are the thing that cares about babies being hurt. So why should you talk to me? Because I'm a dust devil worth talking to. Because I am a dust devil worth talking to. That's why.
So you have meaning. So you find meaning and purpose, and you have feelings and quality.
Yeah, all part of my dust devil. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't care. Like, I would agree with you. Like, just to kind of give you a little idea, like, I'm not really fond of these days of even the word consciousness. It kind of gets on my nerves too, because with the ness on it, like, what does that mean? Happiness. It's like a level of, like, you're either conscious or you're not, according to the way they describe it. So it seems to me that it's just another limiting word. I think that what we're referring to when we say consciousness or say stuff like that, there's just, the best way I can put it is like this arising, this reality that just appears. And we just have words that we use to describe all of these appearances, and even the appearing. We have words, but it's ultimately ineffable. It's ineffable. So we try to have these words to kind of describe the experience. And all I'm really saying is that that's the first thing I know when I wake up in the morning, is that there's this arising of a reality, an existence, all my pains, all my bullshit, all the things I got to deal with, all of that stuff sort of arises in this continuous sort of story. But that's the first thing. So that's the primary way that I know I exist. It's kind of like this, I think, therefore I am, or you could say I experience, therefore I know things. So that's what I base my epistemology on. So that's the first principle. So all of these other things appear inside my consciousness, like these objects, like these cells you're talking about, you guys, all of these things appear in my consciousness, like what they call them, objects within consciousness in philosophy, right? Yeah. So to look at the objects and say one of these objects explains the experience of the object just is problematic. That's all that I'm pointing out with physicalism, is you're looking at the outside thing, this outside external world you have no direct experience with, in order to explain your direct experience of that object. So it's just a little weird.
Yeah, I would deny all that. The first thing I do when I get up in the morning is count how many days old I am. I'm 27,388 today. And the second thing is I know I exist because my cats meow at me. I don't know I exist because of some internal thing. I know I exist because I feel the floor. I have to go to the bathroom. I have to feed the goddamn cats, party time. All of these things are basically, so how I see it is, we got this brain, right? And then inside of a skull, that sort of thing.
I know I exist because my grandsons kick me in the nuts at least 2 times a week.
Right. There you go. Okay. So this idea that, mind, now I will accept that there is something that we can call a mind. There's something I can call a mind, and there's something that I could call consciousness, but it's a grab bag of a whole bunch of things. But for me, my consciousness is not inside of my brain. And it's not just inside of my body. Oh, shit, I did it again. It's not just inside of my body here, but a lot of it is. I mean, my consciousness has more to do with my gut and how my gut feels than anything going on in my brain, basically. And if you meditate a little bit, you'll figure out that that's true. So it's all that stuff. Plus, it's all this shit out here. So in this locality that's about 50 feet around me, right? Like my room and, the outside that I can see, all of that is my mind. So my mind, when I'm walking through the universe, like right now, I'm interacting with you through this, video thing, an audio thing. And in some sense, my mind is extending all the way down to where you are and to where Scott is. And my mind is this thing that's around me. It's not in me, and it's not in my brain. And this idea that there is a representation of outside things in your brain is, in my view, from neuroscience, is bullshit. There cannot be any kind of a representation of anything inside of your brain. Basically, what's happening is that your brain is just fuzzing around, interacting very rapidly with all of the sensory information flying in from all these physical objects, basically. And that creates this idea that we have a representation. And then it goes to some structure in your brain that for us is how I know a cup, that sort of thing. I have the word cup, and I have a kind of a ghost of a memory with my cup, but there's no actual representation of a cup in my brain except for one fucking thing. When you look at something visually, there is an imprinted image of it in the neurons at the back of your brain. And it's 1-for-1 with your retina. It's called retinotopic, basically, or architectonic, I think it is. But anyway, other than that, there's no representation of anything in my brain. I'm interacting with this cup, like I'm looking at the cup, and it is a red kitty qualia cup, Scott. And but anyway, I'm interacting with it over time, and through that time, I get this like feel that I can that I have this representation, but I don't. It's not in my head. It's in the cup more than it is in my head, and it's in my eyes and in my how I'm moving my eyes around and the muscles of my body, and it's in my gut how I feel about myself. So for me, mind is very much something that follows this organism around like a big fuzzy space that's about 50 feet wide. And when I run into another person, we merge together in this wonderful way. Yeah. And
the field of, I call that a field of intersubjectivity.
Yeah. And that's to me, that is physicalism. So basically, I am this thing that's buzzing around.
So are you a non-dualist? Are you non-dualist physicalist or a dualist?
Non-dualist.
Okay, because I'm a non-dualist as well, and it sounds like you explain things in similar ways. Yeah. So I'm like a non-dualist thinker.
Yeah.
As far as idealism, I think sometimes you can get into parsing words, but really it just depends on how you define those words. Like I would say when I refer to physical things as an idealist, I could say, well, those physical things are just objects that appear as physical things. That's as far as I can really know about it. Because even on the physicalist assumptions and methodologies, the physical things sort of bottom out, like we said, at the Planck scale. That's not quantum interpretation. That's just how it is. So at least on one area, it seems like it's making a claim that it can't really substantiate, which is fundamentality. Now, that doesn't necessarily lead to idealism. It could lead to some form of panpsychism or some form of neutral monism of some kind. But it just seems for me, as far as analyzing it all, if consciousness is the first thing I know, like I really know that I'm quote unquote consciousness, not that we have to use that word, but as long as I know that I'm having this interaction, this appearance, then it seems like that's the thing I know. That's the thing I want to keep. That's the thing I want to base my whole epistemology on. And then that can lead to an inference of an ontology that would incorporate that epistemology.
I think that can make you real sick. Basically thinking that this mind thing that you've imagined, that we have this mind thing, that this mind thing is like everything, and that it's all of it. Mostly what you are is a body. You're an organism. And if you think and feel and walk through life on a daily basis, feeling your toes, feeling your feet on the floor, breathing, inhaling, and recognizing your breath and doing all of that, you are in a much better place because you've incorporated more of what you are than just your brain, just your mind, that sort of thing, right? And then you go a little bit further and you extend that to everything around you, to my cats and to you and Scott, and you end up with a less egoic idea of what you are. You realize that you are this that your dust devil is actually pretty fuzzy at the boundaries, and you are just really interacting with a lot of other dust devils and with a whole lot of the environment, right? And none of that violates physicalism at all. So
anyway. Right. And that, I like what you just said, man. I really like that. And in fact, it just sounds like the words physical versus consciousness or mind or whatever just seems to be the words that get shifted. Like I can see that reality isn't in my mind. That's just my epistemology. Ontologically, I grant other minds, I grant other outside external influences and things of that nature the same way. So interacting with your mind and body is simply experience of modulating itself. So when you decide to like raise your hand, there's not a mental cause pushing a physical object. There's just a single event experienced inwardly as an intention and as an outward emotion. So it's kind of like what you're saying too, and likewise, like bodily sensations are not signals sent to the mind, but they're lived expressions within the awareness itself. So in a non-dual term, we're both saying that you're not inside your body, nor observing it from outside. You are just that pattern in nature, in which body and mind sort of co-emerge, inseparable, mutually expressive, you know, and never really divided in that way. So I agree with that. I mean, for the most part, like I say, I don't really care what people believe metaphysically. I mainly care about what people, how they act, what they do.
Yeah.
You know.
Are you familiar with the embodied mind movement that came up around 1990? Well, it actually came up way before that with, but anyway, people like Varela, I think his name is, Evan Thompson. It's called The Embodied Mind. There's a book called The Embodied Mind that you should really check out and take a look at. And that's where I started. And the idea was that the mind isn't in the brain, that it's in the brain and body. But then I've extended that to call it the enworlded mind, where my mind is in the world, you know, this world, this locality around me, that sort of thing. And just a different way to look at it. But anyway, this idea of the idea, you know, we have this word real, and then we have the capital R real, you know, that we frequently do, like what's real. But all we're doing, okay, we are tool making and using organisms that manipulate things with our fingers and our hands and whatever, and our words and all of that. We're very manipulative little organisms, and we have this constant, you know, interaction with things around us, like objects around us, right? And like my cup here, I have a cup, and I'll say, okay, that's real. But then we want to get to this capital R real, which I think is a religious idea, because there's no more real than me just grabbing this cup. I have my fingers, all 5 fingers, feeling the cold at the outside of my coffee cup. My coffee's cold. And that is the real that we're talking about. So we're always dealing with organisms. And when you go to the quantum level, you're trying to recover that same thing, but you can't. Because we can't go to the quantum level because we're not fucking neutrinos.
You can't. We're not neutrinos. No, I agree with everything you just said. I love that. I love that, because that's when people talk about real, that's really what we're talking about, is that experience, that first primary experience. We don't experience beyond the Planck length. We don't experience those things. So when we start talking about reality is fundamentally those things, well, how do you know that? Those are abstractions. The only thing you really know is your experience of the here and now in your body, in your environment, and how you're interacting and all the feelings and everything that go along with it. That's reality.
And everything around you is reality. The rock. I mean, what I don't like about idealism is that it tends to disfavor or discount real things like rocks and trees and all the shit around us. It basically, it says that, oh, everything's in my brain, my mind, or my mind thing, right?
No, that's kind of, See, idealism isn't saying that. That was the first thing I had to learn years and years ago when I started studying this stuff. Because I used to say the same thing. It's just another form of solipsism. But what I've come to realize is that it's actually the opposite. Solipsism is to say that reality is constructed in your mind, and so everything that's real is in your mind. Now, old-fashioned materialists used to say the same thing. They'd say that actually, you get these, photons, and it digests all these sense experiences through the apparatus of your sense organs, and your brain constructs reality. So reality is all in your head. That's like solipsism. That's solipsism. Okay. No, idealism saying, no, what's out there is the real shit. That is real. We're saying the opposite. And we're saying that we can decode it because we're mental. We're relating to what is real out there. So it's all just one non-dual sort of thing, for a better term. But
yeah, we've built
use
the
the
bridge
rules
now.
of physicalism, it breaks down, is what that points to too.
And now we've built the bridge between physicalism and idealism, because all you have to do is replace mental with physical.
Yeah, there you go.
You're in exactly the same. And Scott, goddamn sense data. Are you kidding me? You're bringing up sense data. I'm going to throw you out of the studio.
Okay.
I hate sense data.
I guess I will take my dog for a walk then.
No, don't go, Scott. I'm just kidding.
Now, Scott, did you did Mike say that you did a video dealing with presuppositionalism?
Oh yeah.
Well, I have a question for you about that.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts about presuppositionalism? Number one, and number two, when did you quit wanting to put an ice pick through your brain after dealing with presuppositionalism?
Oh man, for real. Are you familiar with a guy named Darth Dawkins?
Oh,
yes. Yeah.
I got my most.
He actually came on the channel and tried to bully everything.
I got my most views from that video that I've ever had.
Yeah.
If you want views, just say Darth Dawkins out loud.
There you go. Boom, you'll get them. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, presuppositionalism, it's just, for me, the problem with Christian presuppositionalism is they won't own up to what they mean by presuppositional. That word presup means it's an assumption going in. So while you can make a coherent argument within any sort of framework based on your presupposition, it's the presupposition that never gets questioned. It's like they want to keep you from questioning the premise, the assumption, which is for them the Christian God, right? The Trinity. So they'll say the Trinity is just assumed at the beginning. And so we're going to make sense of everything else on there on up. So what you would want to ask them is, well, why should I accept your presupposition of God? And then they'll say, well, you couldn't even ask such a question if there was no God, because how do you explain logic? So they start flipping the table on you and stuff like that. For me, that's a dishonest way to argue. For me, if you're going to presuppose, like everybody's got maybe a presupposition and a worldview, which is fine, but we have to get everyone to agree on the presupposition first. Or we can do an internal critique and say, okay, I'll grant you the premises of your argument, but let's look inside your, like I had this one debate with a presup about 6 months ago. He was a pastor and he was running the presup argument on me. And I was saying, okay, so the only thing I can really do is just agree with you that God, therefore, the Bible is true. Okay, since I'll go ahead and grant you that, let's go ahead and look in the Bible and see if there's any contradictions with the God and what the Bible says about the God. And they don't want to do that. They'd rather stick on, well, no, you don't really believe what I believe. Like, well, it doesn't matter. I'm saying I do. Now, let's do an internal critique. They don't want to do that, which I find highly suspicious, you know.
Yeah. You did a wonderful video.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You did a wonderful video called Reaction Pastor Refutes Atheism at a March, where I agreed wholeheartedly with everything you said. I just posted it in chat, and I'm going to link it in my description, and I've also linked your channel in my description. So anyway.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much. And like I said, I don't get too emotional or contentious about worldviews. Like I keep them in their place, but I am a non-dualist at heart. Like I just see everybody in myself and vice versa, just as an experiential thing or as a practice, not necessarily as a philosophy per se. And you know, it's kind of like a permission slip for me to be a better person, so to speak.
So I just subscribed to Scott's Mirror Point YouTube channel.
Everybody
and
should.
Everybody else to as well. Look for updates. Go back and look at his archive.
Kafai the
Thank you
mushroom
so much.
guy is here. This is Kafai the mushroom guy, a physicalist who says consciousness is identical to brain states and emergent from matters. I'm not a non-dualist and a classical. I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't
Cartesian.
parse it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. We call you Kafai the mushroom guy now. I think it rhymes. It's just wonderful.
It rhymes. You might as well own it. It just rhymes so well.
Yeah.
Cafe. Yeah, he's been on my channel before too.
Has he? Yeah. He's got this God thing that basically occurred.
Perennialism, yeah.
Heroic dose of mushrooms, and I've been trying to do heroic doses for years, and I haven't seen the God thing yet, but I'm
need to try
on
DMT. DMT.
Oh, yeah. Somebody offered it to me about 6 months ago, and I politely declined. Like back in 1970, I was talking to a guy somewhere at a university, I think, and he said that LSD is like a long, slow trip, and I'm like, yeah, I like it. And he said, but DMT is like being shot out of a cannon, and I said, fuck that.
Oh yeah, it's scary. hey, I've done DMT, and it took me. I had to be 40 to do my first one, and my brother had to hold me down and kind of strangle me so that I would force myself to breathe in, because when you breathe in, first of all, it tastes like rubber. If you take like the pure DMT that I got from a shaman, it's like real hard substance that you have to really burn up, and it tastes like rubber, so it's nasty. But as soon as you take it, it literally chokes you. So you feel like you're going to die already. And then if you take a second one, you can't really do anything after that. You're kind of like done. And then you have to take the third one to be sure that you blast off, because you don't want to go through that torture without having the benefit of the experience. So I took the third one, and I've been doing DMT off and on when I can, but it's really profound and everything. And what it doesn't really teach me anything about, what happened before the Big Bang or anything like that. What it does, all it really does is it kind of makes you see that reality is so easy to twist your experience. Like you can see the same reality in so many different ways, and just by a small little change in your structure, and it makes you question this experience. Like, why do we take this normal experience as the right one, the true one, when we've got colorblind people, synesthesics, they all experience the world different, bats, other animals. So it raises that question,
Well, my goal since I've been 19 years old is to see the world in a more LSD-like manner. And you can do that by working on how you interpret things. And I think as a result of all that experience, I think I really experience the things around me at a pretty high level compared to a lot of people. And
that's awesome, man. How did you do that?
I just did like 3 years of mushroom work. And that's one of the things.
Like,
but I did a lot of work. Micro and macro dosing. Macro dosing is really important. But I did a lot of work back in the from 69 to 74 with LSD, about 100 trips. And that kind of set me up, for a lifelong, basically lifelong skill of knowing how to turn more sensory information on. And then my recent work with mushrooms, I've kind of like really heightened it, and kind of happy about it. So anyway.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know what? Because of this conversation, you made me realize something. I'm just going to ditch consciousness and just say,
thank you.
I'm not going to call it physical, but I'll call it arising. That's probably the most
arising
way to say it. There's just whatever it is what it is, and it arises in my field of awareness. So thank you for that, man. You've helped me kind of expand my view a little bit. I appreciate that.
Yep. Cool. Hopefully you'll lose the idealist tag at some point, or at least understand that it's probably the same. If you build a big bridge in the back somewhere, you'll see that it's the same as physicalism.
Well, that's what I'm telling you. That's exactly what I'm saying. You're helping me to see that they're kind of the same thing. It's just the labels we put on it kind of gets in the way sometimes, but
yeah,
not that big of a deal. Yeah.
By the way, I just want to say real quick, Kafai is very complimentary of you.
Yeah.
I'll put it up on the screen. And also, I dig that hat. I think you wear that hat well. Do you have other hats?
Scott has a hat.
Yeah.
Show your hat, Scott.
Show your hat, Scott.
I don't know where it is. I think it's
your hat?
in the closet. So let me.
Oh, okay.
Maybe at a later time.
Wow. Yeah, I got a few hats. I'll start wearing a few different hats, but
I don't get around much anymore, so I lose track of where my hat is.
Cool.
Yeah. The other reason that I do the mushroom work is because I always want to be kicking open new doors and always looking at what I believe and why I believe it, and changing constantly,
right.
Acquiring. And when you're doing that, that is arising. There's it's basically your worldview arising. That's why it kind of disturbs me when I deal with creationists and they talk about your atheist worldview, where everything's just molecules bumping into each other. It's like, fuck no, that's not right.
Right. That's not a good way to sell it. It's like,
that's not it.
It's very, if you think about it, like I was looking at Sabina Hossenfelder's new video yesterday, because I keep up with science stuff sometimes.
It flew by me.
And she was talking about 0-point motion, which is really weird. And she was saying basically, she was like talking about chaos theory and how it relates to like 0-point energy. But now we've discovered 0-point motion, which is really weird too, because basically there's no structure or no equations that actually predict 0-point motion, yet it happens. And so they finally came out with some sort of mathematical description not long ago and proved it with experimentation. And so she was saying that just lets you know that, for lack of a better word, the universe fundamentally is kind of magical, because stuff really does come out of nothing in some ways, like what we call nothing. Now, I'm sure it's something like, it could be like a probability space or something like that, but and she says, and that has a lot to do with the fact that we're aware of these things that happen. What does that say about consciousness? What does it say about us as living creatures living in this universe that spawned out of essentially nothing? And a lot of people got mad at Lawrence Krauss because he used that kind of language, 15, 20 years ago with his book, A Universe from Nothing. And I think he backtracked and was like, oh, I was just using the nothing as like a, because how Christians like to say, atheists always want to say the universe came from nothing. So he said, I just wanted to push back on that and say a universe from nothing. And he probably should have put in there what I really mean, or what it really means. But as it's turning out, there actually is a nothing from which everything comes from, which I find kind of non-dualist in a way, really heavy, because I think one way that they put it, I think it was Bart Ehrman who was kind of talking about the same thing, the 0-point energy. And he was saying, Bart Ehrman, the Bible guy.
Really? He's talking about quantum stuff?
Yep. It's on his website. And he was saying that basically, if you have a real, true philosophical nothing, that means there's no laws, no anything, right? But then there's also no constraints. And if there's no constraints, the nothing will collapse into everything. That was his argument, and he was using that in a debate against an idealist. And the idealist was saying, well, all you're really talking now is non-dualism, because you're talking about nothing and everything kind of being connected somehow, And so I just find there's so much similarity between worldviews that it's almost funny when you just see it like it's just a language problem, because everyone's sort of saying similar shit, But you guys are muted, by the way.
I am muted. Yes.
I'm muted because I wanted to drink from my Red Kitty Qualia cup.
Oh,
This is Red Kitty Qualia.
Mark's just trying to make me mad. That's all.
So that Red Kitty Qualia cup for the last 15 years, I've been using that to talk about consciousness. And
about the 15th time he used that term, I got sick of it.
yeah. So I could call it RKQC, so a Red Kitty Qualia cup. But anyway, it's something that I had a lot of conversations about consciousness, and I delved real heavily into neuroscience, and I went through this whole transformation where I was trying to find the neural correlate of consciousness, and at one time I thought it was the 40 hertz brain waves and the thalamus and all that stuff, and finally like, okay, and then I decided there is no fucking neural correlate of consciousness. It's all, part of it, right? It's all, and then I decided that there's no such thing as unconsciousness, which is another very big conversation that we could have. So anyway, I am unconscious. I am unconscious of Beetlejuice right now, the star. I'm not looking at it. Yeah. Anyway, other than that, everything is conscious. So everything your brain is doing contributes to this mind thing you got going. Everything your body's doing and everything the world is doing around you is all part of it. And walk around, and next time you do DMT, meditate on this.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Those are the things that, fortunately in this day and age, we get to ponder and talk about things like that, where, used to be that people never really thought about deeply about existence and consciousness and reality for most people, because they're too busy working, trying to make a living, throughout human history. And so now we've got all this access to information, now we've got artificial intelligence, and we can learn so much of the work that people have put in regarding these topics, man. Like one of the things I was researching was integrated information theory. Are you familiar with IIT? Yeah.
Tononi?
Tononi and Christoph Koch.
Yeah. Yep.
And trying to measure,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, consciousness within systems that have enough level of phi.
Yeah, gamma. It's I think it's called gamma or whatever. And what they're talking about is that dust devil. They're talking about trying to basically quantify how complicated that dust devil has to be to give rise to what we're feeling. But when you look at consciousness and you go back, I started looking at insects moving their limbs, and that is a rudimentary consciousness right there. Just that bump, 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 they're coordinating. And I started feeling worse about killing bugs. And after that, because they have a rudimentary consciousness is on this line, right? And it's a Socrates paradox. You can't figure out where are we going to call it conscious like us, right? And it's like it's really interesting. But when you see it as a continuum, then all of a sudden you start looking at rocks in a different way and saying, something's going on there too. So anyway,
that led to panpsychism. There's a lot of people coming out. Yeah, because they're seeing the a little consciousness embedded in all things at some level. Like it's not really just on or off. Like Daniel Dennett said, consciousness is an on-off switch. But what research is showing now is more or less on a gradient. It's kind of like there's a gradient.
I think Dennett would have agreed with that. I don't know.
Yeah, I would think he would, because he's an intellectual person, and he goes along.
When I say I don't believe in God, I think of Dan Dennett, and I think, well, maybe I do believe in gods, because Dan Dennett is my God.
Yeah.
And God recently, he passed away last year, I think.
Yeah, he did.
I was horrified. But anyway.
Yeah, man, it's really sad. And he's a great thinker.
The thing about panpsychism is people will then try to take our consciousness, our whirling dust devil with our gamma and try to put it upon inanimate objects like rocks, and that doesn't work either, because that's not what's going on. So anyway, you have to be careful with panpsychism.
Oh yeah, yeah. I if any of them I would say would be reasonable would be that one speaker that's out now. He's really Philip Goff, and he's always doing the rounds on YouTube for interviews and stuff like that. And what he's proposing is that within nature, there's a small gradient of consciousness depending on how complicated the system is. So even atoms have like some spark of consciousness, even subatomic particles. And the reason they start with consciousness, then they say that they're married. In other words, consciousness and matter is kind of like a dualism. It's kind of like there's matter, and on the flip side of the coin is consciousness. So every little piece of matter has it. That way it can dissolve the hard problem of consciousness, because you're not grabbing it from nothing. Now you have the ingredients to grab it from. Whereas, classical physicalism always struggled with that answer. Where is it grabbing the consciousness from? They're just hand waving and saying emergence, but emergence applies to physical things on physical things, whereas consciousness is something different. And plus, we don't ever know, like we know we're wetness, the H2O molecules, but where's the consciousness molecule? Where's the consciousness thing? So
I call them conchicles.
Yeah, conchicles. But there is no molecule like that we see, or atom that we see that can definitively say it's conscious. And I think part of that is because consciousness is first person by nature. So you're never going to know that I'm conscious, really know it scientifically. There's no scientific evidence for consciousness at all in the physical world. There's just stories. I tell you I'm conscious, but you don't know that. And that's the problem.
See, I build it the other way. I'll start with the insect's legs moving, basically motion, and then I will build up from that, saying that is a rudimentary element of consciousness. And when you build it up to what's going on in our brains and our bodies, being complicated or much more complicated primates, it's all just motion still happening, but in a gamma sort of way, in a very, with very complex attractors, and the state is evolving in a very beautiful and complex way. So anyway,
I agree with you 100%. That's what I was saying, like before, when I was talking about how consciousness arises when there's relations. You have to have, there has to be something you're conscious of. You just can't be consciousness without having something to be conscious of. Like there has to be some relation. There should be some sort of subject-object split, even within yourself, to know your own state, your own mental states and things like that. So there has to be some disassociation that happens at some point where reality sort of splits off and becomes motion, or becomes energetic, or becomes a life form, in other words. So at somewhere that disassociation happens, and then this metaconscious starts to take off,
Yeah, and that gets into a whole neuroscience discussion, which would be fun to have. But anyway, I got to quit. I have to get out of here. So, I'm getting tired, and I got to go to Sam's Club to pick up more fucking eye drops for my crazy eyes, which are have been having trouble with. Anyway,
I hear you.
Okay, I'm about 60% blind in my left eye as a result of a surgery that I just had, and I'm trying to deal with that. Anyway, well, a lot of parts are falling off. I'm kind of old, and like my leg fell off the other day, and I'll get used to it. I'll figure it out. Anyway,
all right.
Okay,
man.
So let's get out of here. Scott, I linked your channel in the description, and I encourage everybody to subscribe, and because I really like your stuff. So you do a good job.
Thank you, man.
And
Appreciate
you do a thing every Saturday at noon, you said? Is that true?
every Saturday. Yep. At noon,
Oh,
we open the stage up and we just freestyle and talk and come up with conversations.
I'm going to set an alarm for that, and maybe I'll show up. Well,
You know, I'm thinking, damn it, I'm going to have to read all that consciousness literature that I've.
We can do another topic if you want. We try to do a lot of different things, but whatever you want to talk about, we're open.
Yeah, we backstage. I'll talk to you about giving you a link to our. We went on a Castrop kick and we created a consciousness paper and book drop out in the cloud, and I can link it to you. We only link it to atheists. We don't give it to believers. That's my only rule about my Google Cloud is I don't give it to goddamn believers.
Right on. There
even though they, Anyway, okay.
I don't blame you.
Okay, we're leaving here, guys.
Skeptic Philosophy saying noon CST.
That's right, CST Central.
Okay.
Oh, really? So even though you're out in the east, you use the one true zone.
I'm right here. I'm right here on the central time zone, right where it splits, just about.
Oh,
that must
really?
be confusing for people in the area.
You're in the one true zone. Cool. The one.
Yeah, I'm in the Panhandle. That's right. Yeah, the one true zone. That's right.
So, do people that living in the Central Standard Zone or whatever just stay away from the Pacific boundary and just don't go over there because it's too confusing?
Don't go over there.
I should have said Eastern, but yeah, I just stay away from it because it'd just be too confusing. Or you can use it as an excuse, for being late. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking in the wrong time zone.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was in Tallahassee.
Okay, let's get out of here.
All right.
All right, brothers. Thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you for showing up.
All right.
Goodbye, cruel world. Goodbye, cruel world.